Well, it's the end of August and I'm up at a place that I've wanted to come to for a long time. It's called Last Mountain Lake and it's up in Saskatchewan. Now, the reason I wanted to come here is, first of all, it's a big lake with lots of places to fish, but it's also got big, huge walleyes in it. So I'm fishing with fellow Nitro pro Jeff Stadnick, and we're gonna go out on Last Mountain Lake and try shivering. They haven't done a lot of shivering up here with the shiver minnows, so we're gonna give that a try. I also wanted to run Jeff's ZV21 here because it's got that new 350 Verado on it. So we're gonna go out into Last Mountain Lake, we're gonna shiver up some walleyes, and we're gonna show you the next bite, eh?
Just looking for the next bite, next bite, next bite, next bite. Just looking for the next bite. Yes, we
Last Mountain Lake is the largest naturally occurring body of water in southern Saskatchewan, Canada, formed from glaciation approximately 11,000 years ago.
There's one. Go on, Keith.
However, what makes Last Mountain Lake unique is how late in the summer and even into fall
Oops, is this bothering you at all, Jeff? Oh, sorry.
that droves of trophy-sized walleyes can still be caught and in an aggressive feeding state.
Very nice, very nice. Well, they're right down on the bottom, that's for sure.
There, yeah.
About 30, 31 feet of water. And it's just a sand break here, right?
It is, yeah. It's a gravelly sand break. It's a pretty sharp break, though.
Yeah. Seems to be concentrating them.
With almost 900 square miles of surface area, Last Mountain features an almost endless variety of break lines and structure to potentially explore.
Look at that.
There he is. Mark and catch him.
Oh boy. The nice thing about these medium light rods is you can keep just the right amount of tension, but it typically is a little bit more than you would normally keep on a fish.
It's like a good
Oh my
one.
gosh. Oh man, IK Dominator is dominating. Look at this fish.
That's a hog.
And got him right in the triple grip. That's an important deal too. I mean, these fish can get off sometimes. Look at him. But I saw that fish and I just gave it one little hop and it was saddling down and then just unreal how big that fish is. And heavy.
Nice one. Yeah, it's a nice Last Mountain Lake fish.
And what's really cool is, I mean, it's August, and typically this time of year the fish can be a little bit lethargic. Up here, and not at all. The bites are aggressive, the fish fight hard, and just a ton of fun.
Last Mountain Lake is a huge lake. It's actually nicknamed Long Lake due to the 120 kilometers roughly of shoreline that it has. There's tons of breaks, tons of points, tons of flats. Today we're fishing a deep break line off of a sand flat. It's a gravel break, it's a sharp drop. It drops down from 20 to 31 feet in a matter of 50 yards. Fish uses as a highway. A lot of bait fish are in here at this time of year. They come in here, they compile. We're following up and down the break line, and Last Mountain has a ton of breaks, and the ones I like this time of year are off of sand flats.
There, I got one.
There's one.
God, I almost got it all the way back to the boat and then he hit it. Anybody who doesn't think a walleye fights is out of their minds. Catch a bigger walleye then. Come up to Last Mountain and catch a big one. And usually a 30-foot deep fish, you know, they tire out and come up, but you don't have to guess if you got a bite or not. They hit it.
Very aggressively.
Here he comes. Oh, good. That's a big one.
That's a nice one.
Oh, look at this thing. Oh yeah, look at here. He's hooked in the mouth, but then this treble hook came around and got him back here. Makes him plane a little bit, but that's all right. Oh man,
Look at the
that's the thing about these shiver minnows. These fish, a lot of times when you're working it, especially like when I'm casting and that thing is working, these things see that thing and it's jumping all over. They start swiping at it. They'll get hooked in the mouth, but they'll get hooked all over the place too because you're using a great big treble. But my goodness, look at the width on that thing. That is like unreal width for a fish this size. I mean, it's a big fish anyway, but I mean, you can just feel holding it. It's just heavy.
Pretty sure I heard you grunt on that one, Keith.
Grunting is good. So the technique we're using today is called shivering, and the name comes from a little lure we're using called a shiver minnow. Now the key to a shiver minnow is you got to make it jump and move. It actually swims under the water or shivers under the water. So what you want to do is pop your rod, give it some slack, and let that bait jump to the side and then swing around and come back. Now we're working down a pretty deep break here, and we're actually working that shiver minnow in two different ways. Jeff's fishing right below the boat. I'm pitching out and going a little bit shallower. So I have Jeff tell you what he's doing with his rod.
All I'm doing, Keith, is I'm snapping that minnow about 2 feet off the bottom. So I'll let it settle to the bottom and I'll rip it. Snap it as hard as I can and let it fall. And typically on the falls, I'm getting the strikes.
Right, so that jump and come back. I'm casting in shallow and I'm actually using a technique that's a little bit different because I'm not expecting a fish to bite every time. I'm actually trying to fire these fish up. And the way that I'm doing that is I let the shiver minnow hit the bottom, then I stroke it a few times. 1, 2, maybe 3 times. Then I let it glide. Maybe the next time I'll pop it 4 times and then let it glide. It's on that glide that you're going to get the bites. So we're being pretty efficient covering this break. Both are fun and both are whacking the fish.
Absolutely.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury, #1 on the water. Amsoil, performance for serious adventure. Tracker Boats, fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here. Berkley, catch more fish. And MotorGuide, trolling motors engineered for anglers. Closed captioning for the next bite is provided by PowerPole, the ultimate in shallow water anchors.
So obviously we got a little bit of wind out here right now. It's probably blowing 15 or 20 miles an hour. I guess Canadian conversion, 35, 40 clicks, you know.
That's about right.
But a lot of wind, and this actually would push the boat a little too fast for what we're trying to do. So what I'm doing is using the XI5 up there. I'm actually turning on the heading lock so that it stays pointing into the wind, and then I'm adjusting the speed on my key fob here so that we slowly slip with the current. We're only moving along at 0.4, 0.5 miles an hour. We aren't actually pulling into the wind, we're just sliding with it, working down this break, staying on top of the fish.
Even with the wind laying down now, more than from when Keith and Jeff first hit the waters of Last Mountain Lake in Saskatchewan, Canada.
Took me by surprise a little. It's so darn windy out here.
There is still just the right amount of chop for shivering up a non-stop hit parade of 8-pound average-size walleyes.
It's the Last Mountain walleye there for you.
The walleyes are feeding on shad, and even this late in the year, doing so with almost reckless abandon.
Look at this thing just puked up here. There's a big old shad, right?
Yeah.
That'd be a shad. Now look at how big that shad is compared to the size of that walleye. So don't be afraid to use pretty big baits out here.
Oh, there's one, Keith.
Good one?
Yeah, a really good one, Keith.
Yeah, good thing I'm making this quick lure change then. Switch over to the color you got on. Is he coming in all right?
Nope. I think he's halfway across the lake right now.
Let me get the net for you.
Well, it's going to be a few minutes, I think, Keith.
All right, well then I'll just take a little break.
Have a sandwich? Jeff with a G too, buddy.
Okay.
It's coming slowly now.
There should be one more thing of chartreuse and then a black and then your leader.
Oh, there he is. There's a Last Mountain.
Look at this thing. That is unreal. Oh, IK Dominator. You're saying coming into this that these fish like purple here.
Yeah, it's a great color on this lake.
Now this thing has the girth. That truly is a Last Mountain monster there. I mean, look at that thing. I mean, did he hit it, just really crack it, or?
Cracked it,
I mean, we marked that one big one, and I was just playing around with another little fish, and God, this thing is huge. Yeah.
Real deal, real fishing information from real fishing experts, presented by AmSoil.
For a walleye angler, one of the most confusing things can be, what style treble hook do I use for certain applications in walleye fishing? A lot of people want to know what the replacement hook for those baits needs to be, because one of the things you need to pay attention to with changing out hooks on crankbaits is keeping the same weight, because weight going up in size or going up in weight will affect the action of the crankbait, which can make fish maybe not bite that bait. So what I'm going to use in crankbait situations to match up with the same basic shank length and weight of hook is the TG58. It's a style of that KVD Elite treble hook in the Mustad line, so the same weight is what comes on the baits. So that's in crankbait situations. Now, of course, there's going to be other situations where maybe we're throwing a glide bait, and basically what I'll do is use a different style of treble hook for a few reasons. The style of treble hook I'll use is still that Mustad triple grip, but the model number is actually TG76. And all that means is it's shorter shank and it's actually a heavier diameter as well. If you use a shorter shank, you're not going to get as many flip-ups on the bait, so you're going to be running truer when you're moving that bait a lot. So between crankbait pulling, glide baits, there's a lot of different trebles out there, but the inward bend and the ultra point technology of those new triple grips are still going to keep those fish hooked till they get all the way into the boat.
Switching between two colors of shiver minnows.
Oh yeah, look at that. These last mountain lake fish, they got like vampire teeth in that. I'm going to get your shiver minnow. Very nice. Well, he's called Bloody Nose, so he is kind of a vampire.
And then doubling down on the color that is working has so far been a simple yet effective strategy as Keith and Jeff move along breaks after marking fish.
Look at that thing. Oh, it's the old IK Dominator.
You were saying coming into this that these fish like purple here. We've got so many fish in my armor again. That's a sad, sad state of affairs. And you wouldn't think a fish this big and obviously full of food would want to bite again, but them shiver minnows, there's some about them, dancing around down there, they just can't stand it. All right, so if you're out on Last Mountain Lake and you're driving around and you see something like that looks like this, I've actually stopped the screen. 30 foot, it's dropping down to about 35 foot, so I was just kind of working on the brake. But you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fish all in a real small area. Nice big arcs under them. Exactly what you want to look for.
Knowing what the perfect structure for this August and September timeframe looks like is key, as is also how to approach efficiently cataloging as many of these locations as possible during your time on the water.
So when I'm fishing these big long breaks on Last Mountain Lake, what I'll typically do first is I'll drive the break 5 to 6 miles an hour and I'll graph. On my graph, I'm looking for small arches with some color in them. Typically the ones off the bottom are the ones that are aggressive fish. The ones on the bottom may not be so aggressive. Once I find some of those fish, I'll slow down and start fishing. I'll also look for some bait fish, which is typically red balls of bait on the screen, or it might be blue dots. That's a perfect combo for the fish that I'm fishing. When I slow down and start fishing, this is what you're gonna see. Big long arches with some red and yellow in them. If you see those fish on Last Mountain Lake, you're gonna have a good day.
Oh my gosh, it's a big fish. You can take your time getting the net, because I haven't moved him an inch. Not 1 inch have I moved this fish. It's still going down. Fight hard, oh my gosh. These are some of the hardest fighting walleyes I think I've ever caught. I've never worn out a reel going backwards. He says, well, I'm not ready to come up yet. Little weeds floating by. He's a good one. There he is, Jeff. Yeah! Look at this pig. I tell you what, we were just real slow drifting along and I actually saw that fish. You know, we were marking them nice fish and I mean, he just hammered it, just pounded it. And then when he did, he didn't want to come up off the bottom. Look at the teeth in this thing. They're huge. They're meant for eating and meant for growing right there. All right, Jeff, that's it. I'm officially renaming this lake from Last Mountain Lake to Blast Mountain Lake. So the lures we're using today is what's called a shiver minnow. This is a gliding bait. I'm using a big number 3 shiver minnow today because we're fishing fairly deep. Plus we're going for big fish, so a lot of times big lures, big fish. The only real modification I'm making to the shiver minnow is that I'm adding on a big number 4 triple grip on the bottom. These lures have a lot of weight, they'll move around in that fish's mouth, so you want better hooking, and that's what that triple grip will give you. Using 2 different colors today, it seems like this IK Dominator and this Bloody Nose are the 2 that seem to be really good. What's interesting is a lot of times one will be better than the other. We haven't quite figured out why, so we'll fish with each of them until one of us starts to get a lot of bites, and then we both just switch over. Connected up to the shiver minnow, we're going to put a fluorocarbon leader. I use 10-pound test for that, and then after that I actually have a no stretch main line. So what I like to use is a couple different lines for this. If you're doing a lot of casting, I would suggest Nanofill. It's very, very slippery, very, very smooth. It just casts further than anything you'll find. But I also like using Fireline. It's a little tougher, it's a little bit more durable. Still only 10-pound test. The color we're using for this is Tracer. So it's alternating colors between dark and light. The nice thing about that, as you're fighting a fish, and a lot of times you can see those colors coming in or going out, so you know exactly what that fish is doing down there. Now, as far as a rod, I like to use a fairly short rod. I use a 6-foot rod, and the reason I do that is because you're going to be working a lot all day. You're moving this, you're shivering it all day. So a 6-foot rod is going to be much more comfortable, but you want a very sensitive rod, and I like a medium light rod. So it's a technique where you're going to be working a lot, you're going to be trying to feel those bites or feel those swipes, but if you feel anything, set the hook. It's a lot of fun to catch them with shivers.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury, #1 on the water. Amsoil, performance for serious adventure. Tracker Boats, fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here. Berkley, catch more fish. Mustad, stay sharper longer. Lowrance, find, navigate, dominate. MotorGuide trolling motors engineered for anglers. Strike King, legacy of domination for 50 years. And Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. Topics, leading information, and tackle and techniques to make you a better angler. Presented by Mercury.
This is my daughter's little guy. We're starting the next generation. Here, Mary, you want to take him for me? When my kids were young, I used to take them fishing and boating all the time. We had a riot. In fact, I would recommend to all families, get the kids out fishing. But keep one thing in mind, safety. Safety means life jackets. The kids should be wearing them at all times. In fact, the adults should be wearing them most of the time, if not at all times. I can remember back when we were in the boat, Chase would play with the minnows and have just a riot. But I didn't have to worry about him falling out because he always had that life jacket on. And you know, that tradition extends even to as you grow older. Both Chase and I, as we fish competitively or fishing anytime, still wear our life jackets most of the time. Now, it's really cool to see, after all these years, Chase taking his family out on the water. And guess what? They're having a blast, but the kids have their life jackets on. So if I can give you one tip, get the family started fishing and boating young, but make sure that safety counts, and life jackets are absolutely critical to wear.
Some would argue that walleyes don't put up as hard as a fight as other freshwater species, especially when they come up from deeper water.
These are some of the hardest fighting walleyes I think I've ever caught.
But the monster-sized walleyes of Last Mountain Lake have all but proven that not only are they aggressive in their strike, but determined to not go down without a fight.
The whole line just went and jumped to the side. And, oh.
As Nitro Boats pro teammates Keith Kavajecz and Jeff Stadnick,
A Last Mountain monster there. I mean, look at that thing.
have spent the last few days demonstrating targeting gravel to sand flat break lines, working shiver minnows.
The net is at the ready. I'll go on the other side. Yeah, here. That way I'm not looking right into the glare of the sun. You've got that tracer line on it. I can kind of tell how fast or how slow the fish is coming in because it's that bright chartreuse and it's dark every 5 feet, so it's kind of cool for fighting fish in. He's moving up. He's coming a little quicker now.
I think he's getting a little bit tired now.
Gotta be pretty close here.
Oh yeah, there he is.
Flash.
Decent fish, good fish, good fish. Yeah. Oh, very nice. Oh, look at that fish. That is a monster there. Not only does he got the length, but he's got the old girth to that sucker too. Oh my God.
There's a Saskatchewan walleye for you, Keith.
That is a beautiful fish there. And you saw him on the screen, huh?
Yeah, we marked him. I popped it twice off the bottom and bang, he had her in the belly on that
What color
one.
was that one? I know that was on that bloody nose, huh?
Yeah, that was another bloody nose one.
Look at that thing. I mean, this one here has got the length, and look at just the guts on these things. They're unreal how big they are. I mean, it's probably a pound or two bigger than a normal sized fish that length. I mean, they're that big. They look like almost like a pre-spawn fish almost. They're so gutty.
They're like this pretty much from July on. They get a little bit bigger in September, October as well. So
Unreal.
big fish here.
Big fish, lots of shad.
Big teeth.
Lots of teeth. Fish with teeth. Now I'll put her back in so she can get bigger in September because she looks great in August. Nice fish, man.
There
nice
she
fish. Well, I tell you what, this is just a great place to fish. I've heard about Last Mountain Lake for years and years and how big the fish are, and I guess we've proven that here. But coming up here and showing these fish a new technique like shivering, I mean, that even makes it that much better. We were out of this Rowan's Ravine. The nice thing is it's kind of right in the middle of the lake. If you want to go north where there's not as much pressure, you can go north. If you want to go south where there's a little bit more structure, you can do that. So just a great trip. Well, there it goes. Oh, there it goes. There. Hung. It's easy to catch the big ones. It's hard to catch them little ones. You got to be very skillful. Matter of touch and feel, and just extreme concentration, a lot of finesse. Yeah. When I set the hook, it was like setting into a stump. It's like combat war out here. Move the rod and punch myself in the face.
The next bite would like to thank Rowan's Ravine and GNS Marina, centrally located on Last Mountain Lake. For more information on GNS Marina, visit www.gsmarina.com.